I can't go back in time and change what happened, whether it was 5 minutes or 5 months or 5 decades ago. The only logical, intelligent choice I have if I want to live free from emotional pain is to accept my life exactly as it is.
I just remind myself that everything is unfolding exactly the way it's supposed to. And right now, I might not understand why, but with hindsight, you look back and you go, that's why that, and that happened.
The miracle morning is your daily practice for personal development so that you can wake up every day and start the day in a peak physical, mental, emotional, spiritual state so that you can be at your best. And the miracle equation is your daily process for goal achievement.
I love your miracle equation, that unwavering faith and the effort. It's so important. And when you combine those two things, miracles do happen. Hal, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on. I've wanted to have you on for so long. But before we dive in, can you tell us what you had for breakfast this morning?
The same thing I have for breakfast every single morning, and I would call it like my cancer free smoothie, health smoothie, right? So it's a smoothie with organic ginger root, like a lot of ginger root, organic garlic, an organic orange, spinach, pecans, and then like 20 different powders from organic acerola cherry to Ceylon cinnamon to maca green. I mean, like you name it. It takes me literally 20 to 30 minutes to make the smoothie. It's crazy.
Sounds delicious. I love smoothies. And something that you mentioned there was cancer smoothies. So you have an incredible story. You have faced death twice, one of the times being when you were diagnosed with cancer. So can you take us back and tell us about these two near death experiences that you had, where one of them you died for 6 minutes, which is just mind blowing? Can you take us back to those experiences and share with us those stories?
Yeah. So yeah, I will. Thank you for the opportunity to share this. When I was 20 years old, I was hit head on by a drunk driver at 80 miles per hour on the freeway, and I was found dead at the scene. As you mentioned, it took the fire department an hour to cut the roof off the car and pull me out. I was pinned in because after I hit the drunk driver head on, my car spun off the drunk driver and another car hit me in the door at 70 miles an hour. So the left side of my door, my driver's side door, crushed the left side of my body, and I broke 11 bones, had a lot of internal injuries, and I bled to death. I was clinically dead for approximately 6 minutes on the side of the freeway after they pulled me out of the car, and I'd lost so much blood. And I was rushed to the hospital. Spent 6 days in a coma, flatlined twice more. And when I came out of the coma, I was told that I would never walk again, and I had permanent brain damage. And I made a couple decisions, and the first was I accept life exactly as it is. I had learned a year and a half earlier from a mentor of mine that the root of all of our emotional pain is it's self created. That we create emotional pain based on our resistance to our reality. And most of us, we're not taught that. Most of us think bad thing happens, I feel bad. Good thing happens, I feel good. And he taught me that the key to, being at peace with life exactly as it is, no matter what challenges come up, is to decide you're going to accept life before it even happens. You're going to live life where you accept it exactly as it is because you understand that wishing it were different in the moment that it is what it is, it doesn't change it. It's a form of delusion, right? And so for me, I went, you know what? I was in a car accident, and if I never walk again, I'm at peace with that. And in fact, I told my dad, I said, Dad, I was 20 years old. I said, I'll be the happiest person you've ever seen in a wheelchair if I'm in a wheelchair. But the second decision I made is one of unwavering faith. So the first was unconditional acceptance of where I was, but the second was unwavering faith of where I wanted to go. And I said, I have unwavering faith that I will walk again. And at the same time, I know that it's a possibility that I might not. It's this weird kind of maintaining two possibilities at the same time, being at peace with the worst case scenario and putting all your energy and attention and faith into the best case scenario. And the doctors came in about 3 weeks after the crash. And they said, "We don't know how to explain this, Hal, but your body is healed so quickly. We're going to let you take your first step in therapy." So, 2 weeks prior, they're saying you're never going to walk again. And then they're looking at the x rays going, we don't know how to explain this, but you can walk. And I took my first step that day. And I do believe that for all of us, like one thing that's inevitable in life is adversity, right? We've all had adversity in our past. A lot of us are going through it right now, and there's more on the way, right? Like that's just reality. And the quality of your life is not about the adversity you face. It's how do you respond to that adversity? Do you resist it and wish it weren't happening and get frustrated and angry and sad and scared? Or do you accept it and find that inner peace? And then do you live in fear of the future, or do you live in faith of the future, right? Fear of the future you don't want, or faith of the future that you do want. And then most recently, about 3.5 years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night. I couldn't breathe. And over the next couple of weeks, I had my lung drained, I think 7 times, draining like 11 liters of fluid. I mean, I was in the ER every other day. And it turned out I had a really rare aggressive form of cancer called acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And I was given a 30% chance of surviving, which, is a 70% chance that I was going to die. And it was the exact same two decisions. I accept that I have cancer. I'm at peace with it. I told my wife, I'll be the happiest, most grateful person you've ever seen go through cancer. And I said, and sweetheart, I have unwavering faith. There's a 100% chance that I'll be in the 30% of the people that survive and beat the cancer. And again, the doctors were kind of amazed at how quickly I was recovering. And it's been the hardest 3 years of my life. We won't even go into the whole story. I mean, really, really painful. I was facing death many times in the ER with 104-degree fever and so on and so forth. But again, I accepted my life every moment as it was and maintained unwavering faith that I would live to be 100 years old with my wife, with my kids. And yeah, that's been kind of two of my secrets to, I guess, inner success, if you will, where that nothing in my outer world I allow to dictate my inner world. And I think we all have that power.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing those stories. It's almost unbelievable. And I've seen footage of the car accident, and I'm it is wild what you have experienced. Going back to when you were laying in the hospital bed and you had that decision, you made that decision to accept it and still have that faith. Was that as easy as clicking your fingers, or was it something like, did you still go through that internal battle, or was it as easy as clicking your fingers?
So here's what happened. So yes and no. And what when I the where this came from, where my ability to accept the car accident exactly as it was and not be depressed and just a mess about it. A year and a half prior, my mentor I was in sales. I had started a career in sales when I was 19, selling Cutco cutlery, like high quality kitchen knives. Never thought in a million years I would do that, but a buddy of mine talked me into it, and that's another story. But my mentor, on the second day of our training, we had to go through a 3-day training, and on day two, he taught us something called the 5-minute rule. And this is something I'm going to teach right now because it's very tangible. Everybody can start implementing this. And the 5-minute rule, he said, look, when you go out there and you're in sales, he said it's one of the hardest careers you can be in. You're going to get rejected. You're gonna set goals. You're gonna fail. You're gonna have the biggest order of your career. They're gonna cancel the next day. He goes, it's a roller coaster. He said, live by the 5-minute rule, which states when something doesn't go according to plan, he said, give yourself 5 minutes. He taught us to set our timer on our phone for 5 minutes. I did this for a long time. And he said, for 5 minutes, you get 5 minutes to bitch, moan, complain, cry, feel sorry for yourself, get angry, like whatever. He said, feel your emotions fully. But he said, when the 5-minute timer goes up, you take a really deep breath and you say 3 really powerful words. He taught us, can't change it. It's an acknowledgement. I can't go back in time and change what happened, whether it was 5 minutes or 5 months or 5 decades ago. The only logical, intelligent choice I have if I want to live free from emotional pain is to accept my life exactly as it is. And it doesn't mean, by the way, this is important. It doesn't mean you're happy that that thing happened, but it's much more powerful than happiness. See, happiness is an emotion, right? You can be happy one moment and, a phone call changes that. And now you get bad news and now you're upset. when you accept life exactly as it is, it's not that you're happy or sad or angry or excited. It's this place in between that I call simply peace. When you accept life exactly as it is, you're in a state of peace, and it's not an emotion. Emotions are fleeting. A state of peace, it's a state of being. It's an ever-present state of being. And it's where you're just it's the calm in the midst of the storm. And so, to answer your question, was it as easy as snapping my fingers? Not exactly, but kind of, because I had practiced this for a year and a half. I had been practicing developing my acceptance muscle, if you will, on everything from, my sales career to one of my favorites, which is traffic. Like, I used to get upset over traffic. And then I started applying this, and the 5 minute rule became the 5 second rule. I'd hit traffic and I'd go, no, gosh dang it, I'm going to be late. I need to, I'd get all upset. And then I'd go, wait a minute, can't change it. Why would I spend the next 30 minutes in this car frustrated over the speed of the cars in front of me and the fact that I left late? Those are out of my control. I might as well be at peace every moment. And to me, traffic is a great microcosm for life. Like, the way that most people spend time in traffic is how they spend time in life. They're just frustrated and stressed over these things they can't change. And so I had practiced for a year and a half accepting life exactly as it is. And what started out as 5 minutes, and I go, 5 minutes doesn't feel long enough. I still feel frustrated. After a few weeks of that, I'd set the timer on my phone for 5 minutes, and I'd bitch and moan and complain. And I'd look at the timer and I'd go, okay, wait, I still have 4.5 minutes left. And I'd kind of smile and almost laugh and go, what's the point of staying upset for another 4.5 minutes when I could just get on about my day and do something proactive? So that 5 minute rule kind of became the 5 second rule. And then it eventually became where I go, look, I just am going to accept life before it happens. I made a conscious decision that I will accept everything that ever happens to me and be at peace with it before it even happens. So when I got cancer, I mean, it was literally 5 minutes after I was diagnosed. I called my wife, and she's in tears. She was out of town, and she's in tears, and she's like, she's scared to death. And I know her enough to know her mind's going, oh my God, the father of my children, my husband is like, he's gonna die. Like, I knew she'd go there, but the moment I was told, I had already accepted it. And I called her, I said, sweetheart, I know this is hard, and my heart is breaking for you and for the kids. I said, but I want you to know I am completely at peace with this. I will be the happiest, the most grateful I've ever been. So I want you to know, for whatever it's worth, you don't have to worry about me. Like, I know you're scared I'm going to die. And, I said, but I'm telling you, I'm not. I've beat everything up until this point. And so yeah, so for me, because I had practiced this 5 minute rule, and that's what I encourage people to do, start doing the 5 minute rule every day. Whenever you find yourself upset, go, wait a minute, set your timer for 5 minutes. And when the 5 minutes is up, say 3 words, can't change it, and take a deep breath and go, I'm at peace.
Oh, I love that. That is so practical. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm definitely going to try it. And I know everyone listening is going to give it a go as well because it's just so easy to do. So, there's something that I wanted to add to that. Something I say to myself is everything is always unfolding exactly the way it's supposed to. So, when something happens that, maybe it's it's traffic or something a bit more extreme, I just remind myself that everything is unfolding exactly the way it's supposed to. And right now, I might not understand why, but with hindsight, you look back and you go, that's why and that happened. And I love your 5 minute rule. It's awesome. I talk about something similar in my first book, Mastering Your Mean Girl, and I call it the pity party dance off. And basically, it's a similar sort of concept. And what it is you put an alarm on your phone for however long you want, 5 minutes, whatever it is, 2 minutes, and you get it out. You scream, you punch, whatever you have to do. And then to change your state, you put on one of your favorite songs. So whether it's Beyonce or whatever, and you dance for the entire song. And what that does is it then lifts your state and raises your vibration. And I did this for so long, for so many years. And then it got shorter and shorter. That time where I would express my anger or frustration got shorter and shorter. And it's a similar sort of concept, and it's really practical and allows you to move through emotions like anger and frustration and sadness quite quickly without carrying them through your day or your week or your month or holding on to them for, God forbid, years, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I had a woman who saw me teach this lesson at a speech I gave probably 10 years ago. She was 27 years old at the time, and she sent me an email about a week later, and this was the most profound email I'd ever received. She said, "When I heard you talk about how all of our emotional pain is self-created by our resistance to our reality," she said, "I got very angry because my father committed suicide 10 years prior when I was 17 years old, and I felt like you were telling me it was my fault that I had spent the last 10 years depressed." And that went against everything that everyone else had told me, because when I was depressed or sad or scared or angry about my father's suicide, they would put their hand on my shoulder and say, "You poor thing. I can't imagine what you're going through. You have every right to feel that way." And she goes, "You're the first person that kind of said it was my responsibility." And she said, "So I decided to try it. I started the 5-minute rule and the can't change it practice." And she said, within a few days, I was at peace with his death. And she goes, "In 10 years, I had gone to therapy. I had been on antidepressants. Nothing worked." And she said, "So I went and got a tattoo yesterday," she had said the day before the email, "on my wrist that says, 'Can't change it.'" And she said it was the 10-year anniversary of her dad's suicide. And she said it was a commitment that the memory of her dad would never again cause her depression. She decided she'd replace that memory with gratitude, and that acceptance through those three words was kind of the doorway to that. And and I went, wow, if someone who spent 10 years in depression, that therapy didn't work, psychiatrists, psychologists, antidepressants, and three words, just a shift in awareness that, wait a minute, I'm in complete control of whether or not I resist my reality or I accept it fully. And acceptance is the key that unlocks the door to your emotional freedom.
Yes. Wow, so powerful. So, for someone listening who is experiencing extreme adversity right now, maybe they have just lost someone, or they're experiencing high financial stress, or they've just been given the diagnosis, or someone they love has been given the diagnosis, whatever the situation is, what would you say to them right now?
So first, I would say my heart goes out to you, and I don't ever want to come across as insensitive when I share these concepts, which I've been told that sometimes they go, "I feel like you're just telling me that this is your way is the right way," So yeah, my heart goes out to you. But here's what I would say: I would say that you've got to put pen to paper, meaning that our thoughts are very sporadic, right? You can be thinking a positive thought and then a negative one comes in, and then you try to go back to positive and then negative comes in. And then, especially if whatever we're conditioned to think, that's especially important, right? If you're conditioned to complain or feel sad or angry or be stressed out in traffic, well, those are deeply ingrained, patterns in your brain, in your thinking. And so, in order to change those, it takes repetition over an extended period of time. And so, for me, and this is true for all of us, for me, I do everything in writing. And there's a couple different strategies that I would share. And these are part of what my miracle morning is, that's my practice every morning that I do. And there's I call it the scribing practice. And there's two ways that I do this. Number one, with scribing, I it's almost like self therapy. So I get my thoughts out of my head and on paper, and I'll go, "I feel effing angry right now," right? Or "I feel afraid of the state of the world," or I get it out. And sometimes I'll do it in the form of questions. If I wake up and I'm like, "What, I feel something, but I don't know why," I'll go, "What am I feeling?" And you literally, I just write, just kind of like let my pen be guided by, higher consciousness or whatever. And out comes all of my problems. I get it out on paper. And it's an amazing therapeutic practice to get the emotions that are inside you that feel overwhelming when they're on paper. It's like you've got rid of them. It's you put them on paper and now there's the separation and you see that they're not you. They're just these emotions that are living inside of you. So that's the first piece, is writing out everything that's causing me emotional turmoil. And then the second piece is I create affirmations. And the way that I view an affirmation is a reminder of my highest aspirations. So who I aspire to be, how I aspire to feel, what I aspire to create in tangible form in terms of, my goals or dreams or results, outcomes that I'm committed to. And so I affirm what I want to feel better. I will focus on again, it's kind of continuing that therapy, but I make these statements. And I'm going to give three really quick steps to create affirmations that produce tangible, measurable outcomes in your life, because I think affirmations are really misunderstood. We've been taught to either lie to ourselves, and if you're unhappy, just say, I am happy, right? And you're fighting reality because the truth will always prevail. You go, I am happy, and your subconscious goes, no, you're not. You're miserable. So you can't lie to yourself. And the second problem with affirmations is we're taught to use this flowery passive language that promises a magical outcome without us doing anything. So an example is, I am a money magnet. Money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance. And while that might make you feel good in the moment, so there's a little value in it, if you leave it at that, like, that's not how money works. Anybody that's built a fortune, it's not they're not they don't go, yeah, I was a magnet and money just flowed in effortlessly into my bank account. They probably had to actually work, create value, offer it to the market. You know what I mean? So here's three really practical, actionable steps to create affirmations that are really, again, practical and actionable and really produce outcomes. Number one, don't just affirm what you want, affirm what you're committed to. In doing so, you program your subconscious mind with the kind of the resolve, the discipline, the focus, the commitment that you need to produce the result. So, for example, instead of lying to yourself saying, I am happy, or I am thin, or I am wealthy, if those things are not true, say, I am committed to becoming happy. I am committed to becoming thin, or I'm committed to losing 20 pounds. I'm committed to becoming wealthy. Right now, you're affirming something that is not only true, right? You're not saying something is already as it is that it's not, right? You're not saying I am wealthy, I am thin, I am. You're affirming a commitment, and that commitment is required for that to become a thing. And the more you affirm the commitment, the more it becomes real, the easier it becomes, and the more you start to live in alignment with that commitment. The second step to an affirmation is um, affirm why it is meaningful and or crucial for you to achieve that outcome that you're committed to. So, for example, I am committed to earning $50,000 this year. Well, why? Why is that so important? Because just the outcome, there's no juice there, right? It's just money. It's just a number. Our psychology needs to attach to a meaningful, deeply meaningful reason that we're compelled to do it. So I'm committed to earning blank dollars so that I can provide financial security for me and for my daughter or my son and right? Like, what's that meaningful why that when you read it, you go, yeah, I'm committed. Like, I will do whatever it takes for those reasons. And then number three, what specific actions will you take and when? And that's where, as my coach used to say, the rubber meets the road. I am committed to doing blank on these days at these times, right? And I'll give you an example. So when I was diagnosed with cancer and I was given a 30% chance of surviving, did I have fear? Absolutely. Every day it would enter my mind, what if I died? I'd see my kids, I'd start to get like weepy and go, my daughter was 7, my son was 4. Like, the idea of leaving them without a dad is like, there's nothing I can imagine worse. And every day I would experience fear. Here's the difference. It was only for a few moments. And then I'd pull out my affirmations, and they said, I am committed to healing my body from cancer and living to be 100 plus years old with my family. No matter what, there is no other option. Right? So that was my commitment. I am committed to healing my body from cancer. Taking ownership, by the way. I will heal my body from cancer, not I hope that the chemo works. No. The second thing is, why is it deeply meaningful? Because my son needs his daddy, or his dad. My daughter needs her daddy, and my wife needs her husband, and I need me, and the world needs me, right? I had all the reasons. I had reasons for each person in my life. My sister had already died when I was a kid. I said, my mom doesn't deserve to lose another child. My dad gave up everything to save me, right? I had a list, not just one. I had a list of all my compelling reasons in bullet point. And then the what I will do is I wrote, I will do every holistic practice, and I had a list of them. I was doing acupuncture, ozone therapy, beamer mat, eating a raw vegan diet, juicing every day. I mean, I did everything, lymphatic massage in combination with the chemotherapy because I had this rare cancer that all the holistic doctors said you have to do the chemo. We can't help you without that. So I decided to do both. But I did both. And I did my miracle morning, I did it all. So the point is, when you follow those three steps, you're affirming what you're committed to, you're affirming and reminding yourself why it's meaningful to you, why it's crucial to you, and you're affirming what specific actions you'll take and when. You're not deluding yourself. You're not lying to yourself. You are programming your subconscious mind to think and believe and feel in alignment with the outcome that you're committed to. And you are directing your conscious behavior so that you follow through and do the things that will produce the outcomes. And I encourage you to take that affirmation formula and attach that to every area of your life. Your health. What are you committed to in your health? What are you committed to in your marriage? What are you committed to in your finances, in your career, your impact in the world, as a parent, right? Every area of my life has all three of those steps in the form of an affirmation. And every day it keeps me focused on being committed to the person I need to be and the actions I need to take to achieve everything that I want for my life.
Oh, I love it. It's so specific. And it's also heartfelt because you're connecting with the why. Why do you want that thing? And when we connect with the why, that is what gives you the motivation and the juice to keep going. So I love that. That's so practical. Thank you for that. You've spoken a little bit about the miracle morning. Can you tell us what exactly is this miracle morning that you speak of?
Yes, thank you. This until further notice, this is my life's work. The miracle morning, I've never contributed anything to the world other than my kids and family. But in terms of the world, um, that is has impacted people's lives more than the miracle morning. And the miracle morning, it started out as a morning ritual that it was not. It's now a book. That's what the book has reached. I think we just surpassed 2.5 million copies sold, and it's been translated in 37 languages. So the book is what's reaching all the people. But I'll go back to the beginning. It was 2008. The United States economy crashed, and I crashed with it. I had just started my first business as a business coach, and my business failed. I lost, like, the business was thriving. The economy crashes. I lose over half of my clients, therefore over half of my income. I lose my house. I can't pay my mortgage. The bank forecloses on my house. My body fat percentage tripled in 6 months. It was like this 6 month downward spiral where physically I was at like my lowest point, mentally and emotionally. I was really depressed for the first time in my life. I was just declining. I was losing money. I was growing debt. I mean, it was really the lowest point in my life. And um, a series of events led me to listen to this Jim Rohn audio. And in this audio, I heard Jim Rohn say a quote, and thank God, this quote, I mean, it changed my entire life faster than I ever imagined. And it really gave birth to the miracle morning. Jim said, your level of success will rarely exceed your level of personal development because success is something you attract by the person that you become. And when I heard that, like a light bulb went off, and I went, wait a minute, I'm not dedicating time every day to my personal development. Therefore, I'm not becoming the person that I need to be that can create or attract or sustain the success that I want. And so I went, I'm going to go online and I'm going to find out, what do the world's most successful people do for their personal development? And I Googled, like, what do CEOs do? What do millionaires do? What do billionaires do? What do world champions do? And Olympians and all the things. And I was looking for the best personal development practice that I could start implementing in my life. And I ended up with a list of six. I couldn't narrow it down to one. It was meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and journaling. And uh, depending on which article you read or which interview you watched, there was no like clear cut winner. It wasn't like they've compared these six and here's the winner. And so I got overwhelmed and I went, I don't know which one to do. And the epiphany was, wait a minute. What if I woke up an hour earlier tomorrow, even though I was not a morning person? That was the hardest part, which we'll get to that in a second. I go, what if I woke up an hour earlier and I did all six practices? What if I did like 10 minutes each? I thought that would be the ultimate morning ritual, the ultimate personal development ritual. All the stuff I was reading, nobody was saying I do, meditation, affirmation. Like they just said I do one or maybe one or two, maybe three at the most, but nobody did all six. And I went, that would be the ultimate. And I was at such a low, desperate point. I was like, I'm willing to do whatever. And so that night I went to bed. And even though I wasn't a morning person, it was kind of like a kid being a kid on Christmas. I was like so excited to try this. And I woke up the next morning and I fumbled my way through all six practices. And by the way, if you're listening right now and if you're taking notes, let me give you a frame and we'll dive into these. These are known now in the Miracle Morning book. These are organized as an acronym, which is these are the savers, the lifesavers, SAVERS. The S is for silence. That's your meditation or your prayer time. The A is for affirmations, which we already covered. The V is for visualization, which, the world's greatest athletes swear by visualization. The E is for exercise. The R is for reading. And the final S in savers is for scribing, which is a fancy word for writing or journaling, but the J didn't fit the acronym. The saver J wouldn't work. So became the savers. So I ran through all six of these, but I didn't know how to meditate. I didn't know how to do affirmations. They felt really goofy. So I fumbled my way through all six practices. And I'll dive in and give some tips on each in a minute. But at the end of that hour, Melissa, keep in mind, I was depressed. I was in debt. I was a mess externally, which had made me a mess internally. This was 2008. The economy was tanking. And the climate was similar to today, right? There was no virus, but it was, record unemployment, right? I mean, everybody's, failing and afraid, and the news is pouring fear down our throats, right? Like it was the same climate. So my outer world was still a mess, but that morning, doing 1 hour of what wasn't really an impressive morning routine. Like I said, I was fumbling my way through it. I felt empowered for the first time in 6 months because this was my mindset. I went, wait a minute. If I start every day like this, because even though I wasn't good at it, it was new, I still felt calm and at peace, and I felt focused, and I learned something to implement into my life and my business, and I felt motivated and I felt energized. And it was, this 1 hour, I go, if I start every day like this, every single day, it's only a matter of time before I become the person that I need to be in terms of the mindset and the habits and the discipline and the knowledge in order to create everything I want for my life. And so I committed to do these six practices every day. And a month later, no, I'm sorry, it was 2 months later, I had more than doubled my income. Keep in mind, the economy was still getting worse, and I didn't change careers. I just figured out through the clarity and the knowledge I was gaining during my miracle morning, I just figured out how to still find prospects in that economy. And I more than doubled my client load for coaches or as a coach, and I doubled my income. I went from being in the worst shape of my life physically. 2 months later, I was training for a 52-mile ultra marathon. I had never run in my life except for high school PE class when they forced you to run a mile, and I hated it. But as I was doing the miracle morning, I was just becoming a different person. Like I had never thought so big. And I was so I felt unstoppable. And I went, what would be a way to challenge myself physically? I go, what if I ran a marathon? And after I grabbed that idea, I went, no. Everybody did marathons. Everybody does marathons. What if I did a double marathon, right? And I completed it, 6 months later. And I went to my wife and I go, sweetheart, 2 months ago, I was depressed. Obviously, I'm not depressed anymore. I'm on fire. I said, we were in debt. We're still in debt, but I've doubled our income. We're on our way out. And I said, and I was in the worst shape of my life physically. I hadn't exercised in 6 months. I said, I'm running 20 miles a week. This is crazy. I said, this morning routine, it feels like a miracle. And she goes, it's your miracle morning. Without skipping a beat, she goes, it's your miracle morning. And I go, I love that. But again, it wasn't a book idea. But I started teaching it to my coaching clients as I go, guys, I'm doing this thing I call the miracle morning. Let me tell you about it. And almost every single one of them went from, I'm not a morning person, but basically I was as excited as I am now, and they're like, well, it's working for you. I'll give it a try. And every single one of my clients, I think I had 14 clients at the time. Every single one, except for one, so 13 out of 14, came back to the next call 2 weeks later, and they were all just like me. They were on fire. They go, Hal, I'm earning my business is thriving. I'm reading, I'm exercising, I'm on and on. And that's when the light bulb went off. And I went, wait a minute. If the miracle morning changed my life, and I was not a morning person at all, and I was at rock bottom. If it changed all my clients' lives, and they weren't morning people either, this could change the world. It could change anyone's life. And so I was like, I have to write a book. And I started writing a book. Writing's hard for me. It took me 3 years. I self-published it. And my goal was to change a million lives one morning at a time. And the first year, I sold 17,000 copies. I was like 983,000 copies short, right? The second year, and it took 6 years, but it reached a million people. And now it's 2.5 million people. And we have a documentary. The Miracle Morning movie comes out on 12/12/2020, and it follows my journey of going around the world trying to change millions of lives and then getting cancer halfway through and almost dying. And our filmmaker was in the hospital with me filming like me at my lowest points and doing chemo and completely bald and really skinny and all of these things. And anyway, so yeah, so the movie's coming out, and my mission is now to elevate the consciousness of humanity one person and one morning at a time. And it's become this collective mission where our community of millions of people are committed to this. They're waking up every day, doing their miracle morning, elevating their own consciousness, and then sharing it with as many people as they possibly can. And that's how it's become kind of this global movement. So that's the miracle morning in a nutshell.
I love it. What was the tipping point? So you launched it and you sold 17,000 in the first year. What happened that it just skyrocketed? Like, what was the tipping point? I mean, did someone get hold of it? Did Oprah get hold of it? Or, what do you think it was that tipped it over and it just went flying?
So I there yeah, so there I call this I call this the miracle equation. So this is my approach to all of my goals. Is I already covered one, unwavering faith. That's the first decision I make, that every goal I set, I will maintain unwavering faith through the ups and the downs and the fear and the doubt. I will just it's a commitment, like no matter what. It doesn't matter if I feel fear, I choose faith, right? And the second decision that I always make is extraordinary effort until the outcome is achieved. And extraordinary effort doesn't mean that I work 60 hours a week. In fact, it's my family's number one, not work. It means that I do at least one thing every day that moves me closer to the outcome. And so extraordinary effort for me is really about consistency until the outcome is achieved. It's not working like a maniac. It's just every day I do one thing, I move a little bit closer, and sometimes it's more than one thing, but I move closer every day. And so I just want to share that because those are the two decisions I believe that create miracles in our lives. When we commit to an outcome and we commit that we will maintain unwavering faith no matter what, and put forth extraordinary effort until the outcome is achieved, well, we kind of become unstoppable. The only variable really becomes timing. And that for me was it. My first year, my goal was to sell 1 million copies of the Miracle Morning. That's how I was going to change 1 million lives one morning at a time. And I chose 1 year because it's just kind of the arbitrary number that we all choose. And I didn't even, it's like blind optimism. I don't even know how to sell books. How am I going to sell 1 million copies, right? But that was the goal. And I sold 17,000 copies. Now, if you do the math on that, that means I was 98.3% short of the goal, right? Like that's by measure, that's a dismal failure, right? But those two decisions, unwavering faith and extraordinary effort until the outcome is achieved, well, it didn't waver. Now for sure, was I a little bit bummed? Like, dude, and was I also questioning how long it was going to take? I go, this might take like 100 years, but I was committed. And when the year ended, I went, you know what? If it takes the rest of my life, it's almost a commitment of how you're committed to being and not being attached to the outcome. Like, I'm going to maintain unwavering faith that I can change 1 million lives with this miracle morning. And I'm going to put forth extraordinary effort regardless of the results. If I died and at the end of my life, I only 100,000 lives were changed, whatever. I did everything that I could because I maintained those two decisions. So year one, 17,000 copies. And by the way, I want to be really quickly mention what I did. I did over 150 interviews on other people's podcasts. I did 52 of my own weekly podcast episodes that I launched when I launched the book. I was on 13 television shows all over the United States. I gave 36 speeches all over the United States and Canada. That was my extraordinary effort. I did everything in my power. I also launched this Miracle Morning Community Facebook group, and I added value as much as I could there. I did everything in my power to reach 1 million people, and I reached 17,000 people. And year two, I just dusted myself off and I go, all right, let's try it again. And year two, I think I sold 23,000 copies. So not that many more, right? And year three, I don't remember the exact number, but it took me 6 years to reach that 1 million person goal. So it was 6 years later that I sold 1 million copies of the book. And in terms of what that tipping point was, it's primarily word of mouth, right? If you read the book The Tipping Point, by the way, which I actually read that book early on, the book The Tipping Point talks about how do these companies that like struggle for years finally take off and seem like an overnight success, or individuals, or brands, or movements, or whatever. And what they find is it was kind of that unwavering faith and extraordinary effort. Like you just keep doing it. And then it's often different for everybody what that tipping point is. Sometimes it's just the word of mouth reaches critical mass, which is kind of what it was for me. But there was one kind of turbocharging toward the end. And that is I was on Pat Flynn's podcast, Smart Passive Income. And Pat has a really loyal following. And Pat, on the beginning of the episode, said, Hal, I'm not a morning person. I don't want to be a morning person. Like, but I've heard this miracle morning thing is working for people. So, I'm convinced me kind of thing, right? And I'm going, how am I going to convince this guy that's got a great family life? He's very successful. Like, how am I going to convince him to wake up early? And after the interview, he goes, Hal, I'm committing to you and to my audience that I will do this for 30 days and I will share the results on, social media, and I'll just update people on the results. And he ended up becoming a Miracle Morning fanatic. I mean, he's in the movie. Like he is like a morning person diehard now. And so yeah, so if there was anything that was a catalyst, I think his support. I think we were selling about 3,000 copies a month when I did the interview with him, and it jumped up to 5,000 copies a month. And then eventually it reached 10,000 copies a month and just kind of, stayed there for, I think until now. Yeah. So that was it. But again, I want to say it wasn't one thing. It was at that point I had done like 250 interviews. So you never know what the one, like, I think people are like looking for that home run, that Oprah Winfrey effect, that Tim Ferriss effect. No, the only way that I'm still waiting for that. Like I'm still waiting, like I'm still like Ellen or Oprah or like whatever. Like, it's still, and it still hasn't reached that point where it sells 1 million copies overnight because it reaches this super world famous person. I have yet to reach that person, right? But again, I'm committed until the day that I die, if you will, which hopefully is in like 70 years or 60 years. But I will continue to maintain unwavering faith and put forth extraordinary effort. And the last thing I'll say is I took the number off. So the number was change 1 million lives. And once we reached 1 million people, I went, well, what is it now? And so my mission in life, and this is where it's forever, for the rest of my life, is to elevate the consciousness of humanity one person and one morning at a time through the miracle morning. And that's why we're coming out with the movie in December, because my friend that's a filmmaker pointed out, he goes, Hal, what percentage of people read self-help books? And I said, like 1%, maybe. He said, what percentage watch television or movies? And right when he said that, he convinced me. I go, I guess we're making a movie. Like if we're gonna reach everyone and truly elevate the consciousness of humanity, we have to put it in a form, right, where they will actually turn it on and watch the 90-minute movie versus reading the 150-page book. And so yeah, that's where we're at.
Love it. I can't wait to see the movie. It sounds awesome. And I love your miracle equation, that unwavering faith and the effort. It's so important. And when you combine those two things, miracles do happen. So I love that. And that's your next book, isn't it? Miracle Equation.
Yeah, that's my latest book that came out last year, and it's kind of interesting. Miracle Morning came out in 2012, and so most people think, oh, you're really milking that miracle brand, right? Miracle Morning, Miracle Equation. It's actually really ironic. The Miracle Equation I created when I was 20 years old, when I was in sales, or 21. And so that was 20 years ago. So I created that, what, before the miracle, like 15 years before the Miracle Morning was an idea. And and it was called the Miracle Equation. And I used to give speeches about it in just like in my community and my company and this and that. And the irony is, the Miracle Equation, as I just described it, is the mindset and the approach that I used to turn the Miracle Morning into this worldwide movement. And then when a publisher reached out and said, "Hey, we would love for you to write a book with us. What book would you like to write?" And I threw out like 4 or 5 ideas, and I said, "I'm going to save the one that's on my heart for last, but I don't know if it's marketable. I don't know, it's kind of woo woo, I think. I don't know." And I shared with the way I shared it, the Miracle Equation, and I said, "I've been living this for 20 years." I said, "And if you study the world's most successful people in any walk of life, you find that those are the two decisions, unwavering faith and extraordinary effort, that they've made over and over and over and over and over again, right? It's not a one-time decision. You make these over and over and over. Every day when you wake up, you go, I'm going to maintain unwavering faith that I can do everything that I need to get done today and achieve all of my outcomes. And I'm going to put forth extraordinary effort no matter what. There's no other option." And if you study the world's most successful people, you find that those are the two decisions that they've made for their entire, that led to their success. And so, yeah, so luckily the publisher was on board, and that was my first traditionally published book, The Miracle Equation. And the way that I kind of, for anybody listening, and if this is all new to you, here's how I look at the two books and how they kind of complement each other. The Miracle Morning is your daily practice for personal development, so that you can wake up every day and start the day in a peak physical, mental, emotional, spiritual state, so that you can be at your best, so that when you show up to your work or your family or whatever, right, you are the best version of yourself every day. So the Miracle Morning is that daily practice for personal development. And then the Miracle Equation is your daily process for goal achievement. And that's what I realize is a lot of people become personal development junkies, right? And they just like they read and read and read, but they don't have faith they can achieve their goals, and they don't have the habits in place to put forth that extraordinary effort. And so I kind of realized that the Miracle Equation is the next step. After this Miracle Morning, you get this practice down for your personal development. You need a process for goal achievement. You need to be able to transfer that personal development into real, tangible effort, a practice, a process that will make your biggest goals and dreams, that'll turn them from, seemingly impossible to ultimately inevitable. And I feel like that's what the Miracle Equation does to complement the Miracle Morning.
Love it. What if someone listening is like, there's no way, Hal, that I am getting up 1 hour earlier?
Yeah. I would say join the club. Um, I was asked about, well, let me say this. When I was writing the Miracle Morning, that was my biggest fear. I would, whenever I would have writer's block, I would almost throw in the towel. That's why it took me 3 years to write the book, because it was just, I struggled with a lot of self doubt and writer's block and all that. But I kept thinking to myself, how am I going to convince someone who's quote unquote not a morning person to
or
to to
or has 4 kids,
yeah,
and
yeah,
like, so how do you convince that mama who's
yeah.
got 4 kids, who's not a morning person, who is saying right now, Hal, there's no way, there's no way?
So here's what I will say is that about a year ago I was asked in an interview, how what per it was that question, but it was followed by, what percentage of the Miracle Morning community were already morning people before they read the book. So this was just a shift of behavior. It was like, oh, okay, instead of checking email first thing, I'll do the savers, right? Or instead of watching the news, I'll do the savers. They said, what percentage were already morning people? So this was not a big overcoming of a limiting belief that they're not a morning person. They just had to shift their behavior. And they said, and what percentage of the Miracle Morning community were never in their life had ever been a morning person? So this was like a big, like, I don't know. And I did not know the answer. So we surveyed the Miracle Morning community, And I was really like, I really didn't know. I assumed that I was thinking like 50-50. I don't know. Maybe it was going to be 80% of people were already morning people. So I would just kind of caught the low hanging fruit with the book, you know? And I was kind of pleasantly surprised and blown away. 72%. And again, there's hundreds of thousands of people, in our Facebook group, but 72% said they had never in their entire life been a morning person until they read the book. And
Wow.
so when I say join the club, not just me, but it's the majority of people that do the miracle morning. And here's why I kind of tried to figure out why that is. Why were so many people have been able to overcome a lifetime of telling themselves, I'm not a morning person, or I've got 4 kids, I don't have time for this. And I'm going to answer that question kind of separately because it's a little bit different. Um, there's a chapter in the book called the 5-step snooze proof wake up strategy. And this is basically this is the linchpin that enables people to overcome that. I like to snooze. Like I don't I have trouble waking up in the morning. And I'll share a few of the most important of these 5 steps. Number 1, you have to set your intention before bed. In other words, you have to make a commitment before bed. And in the book, there's actually something called the bedtime affirmation, which is my personal affirmation, word for word, that I have on my bedside table. I don't anymore, it's memorized, but that I had for many years on my bedside table that I would read before bed. And it said, I am committed to waking up tomorrow at blank time. And I am committed to waking up with energy and discipline and getting out of bed, and on and on and on. And so before bed, think about this. Your first thought in the morning is almost always the same thought you had before bed. You could also say that with emotion. The first feeling you have in the morning is whatever the feeling was you had before bed. Many people, maybe even most people, go to bed stressed about the next day, right? You go to bed stressed, you don't sleep that well, and your first thought in the morning is, oh God, it's morning. I have to do blank, 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 and blank today. I've got that client meeting. I'm in debt right now. My husband and I went to bed having a fight, right? And so that bedtime affirmation allows you to set your intention and your mindset and your emotions before you go to bed. So your first thought in the morning is exactly what you programmed yourself for bed, which is it's morning, I'm excited, I'm awake, etc. So that's the first step, is you've got to set your intentions and your commitment before you go to bed. And maybe the most important step is you have to set your alarm clock as far away as you possibly can. For me, it's in the bathroom next to my sink. And when I wake up in the morning, because here's the reason. If you can reach the alarm clock while you're still half asleep, what do you do almost every time, Melissa? What do most people do? Yeah, without even, sometimes you don't even wake up for it. It's like a dream. Oh, I'm dreaming. What? And I snooze, right? When you have to get out of bed, walk across the room, it is 10 times, 100 times, infinitely easier to stay awake. And I remember I gave a speech in New York, and a CEO said, before I went up on stage, he was introducing me, and he said, Hal, I hope you share this tip. In case you don't, I'm going to. He said, the game changer for me was moving my alarm clock across the room.
And
And
it's so
combined,
simple.
so simple. But this is a CEO of this big company, and he's like, I never thought of that. It was a game changer. But when you combine that with the first step of setting your intention before bed and the commitment, well, now that you're awake and you're remembering, I'm committed to stay awake and brush my teeth and wash my face and rehydrate with a full glass of water, those two things make you unstoppable, and it's so much easier to just move on with your day. And then once you do your first miracle morning, you are so energized, you're so inspired, you're so fired up that the second miracle morning, it's like you're like a kid on Christmas. When the alarm goes off, you already know what's coming. You go in, you turn it off, you brush like you can't wait to get in the living room. And I'm speaking both from experience and from hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people that will tell you the exact same thing from their own experience. And
Mm.
then I'll answer your other question if you want to share something. I know I talk fast and a lot, but I can answer the question of what if you have 4 kids and you're like, I don't have time for this. So that's a question we get asked a lot in the Miracle Morning community in the Facebook group, right? I'm a mom, I've got 3 kids, I already wake up at 6 a.m. to get them ready. Like, I can't do it. And every the moms and the dads, they come in, the other parents will come in, and people will get dozens and dozens of comments or hundreds of comments, and they will say, I thought the same thing. I gave it a try. I woke up an hour earlier, and you can wake up half an hour earlier to start, just ease into it. But they said, you realize that it allows you to prime yourself to get in that peak physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual state, so that when your kids wake up, you're super mom, you're super dad, right? And what you realize is, oh my gosh, I need this more than the people that don't have kids, right? And you go, my family deserves this from me. And that's, for me, that's what I that's what I've realized, is that when I started the Miracle Morning, I was 29, I think 29 years old, and I was in debt, and I was doing it very selfishly, right? It was like, I need to make money, I need to be successful, I need to turn my life around. And what I've come to now is that the Miracle Morning, while it helped me do all of that and get everything that I wanted out of life, it's now, for me, it's the ultimate practice for me being the dad that my kids deserve, and being the husband that my wife deserves, and the leader that my community deserves, and the human that humanity deserves, right? And so for me, I still do the Miracle Morning. I've done it probably an average of 6 days a week for, what year is it? So 13 years, 12 years, 12 or 13 years, almost every day. And for me now, it's about giving to myself first, so that I can give the best version of me to the people I love and the people that I lead.
Oh, I love it. What are the reasons why you wouldn't do it?
Great question. Um, so the only time I don't do it is if I stay up late. And so that is date night with my wife, movie night with my kids. So I probably average, like, 5 to 6 days a week, depending. I actually love doing it on the weekends. Oprah Winfrey has a great quote that sums up why. She said, and I'm doing my best to quote her. She said, I love waking up on Saturdays and getting to work, because it gives me a sense of time freedom that doesn't come with the pressure that the weekdays come with. So I love Miracle Morning on Saturday. I love it on Sunday. And people in the community, that's another popular question in the Facebook group. They go, do you do the Miracle Morning on weekends? And it's almost always the same answers. Uh, at first, I started with 5 days a week, and then I would take Saturday off and I would sleep in, but I'd wake up and I wouldn't feel as good as I felt when I did the Miracle Morning, right? I wasn't centered. I wasn't calm. I wasn't focused. I didn't have clarity, all these things. They go, so then I started doing it on the weekends, and I went from 5 days a week to 6 days a week to 7 days a week. But I always say, I always tell people, do it more than you don't. So at least 4 days a week, right? But I do tell people in the beginning, the Miracle Morning book concludes with a 30-day challenge. And I talk about the importance of doing something for 30 days in a row. And if you miss a few days, that's fine. But if you do something every day, the more often you do something, the easier it is to keep doing it. And so I have a chapter that leads up to the final chapter in the book that explains, like, the psychology of why we fail to make changes, and for those changes to stick, and then what we need, how we need to approach things, both psychologically and logistically, for a change, a behavior, a habit to stick forever. And so that leads into this Miracle Morning 30-day challenge. So I always tell people, I encourage you to try to do it 30 days in a row. And if you miss 5 of those days, or whatever, 6 or 7 or 8, whatever, do the best that you can. And it'll get easier and easier and easier, and just become part of your life. And people will tell you in the community, like, when they don't do the Miracle Morning, they just feel off. They just feel like they miss. It's like people that love going to the gym, and when they miss the gym, they just feel like, man, I missed that practice that nurtures my soul.
I love it. Can you do an express version, like say a 5 minutes, 5 minutes of each one?
You can. So the beauty of the Miracle Morning, and I know I'm like giving away a lot of the book here, but there's a chapter in the book called "Customizing the Miracle Morning to Fit Your Lifestyle and Achieve Your Goals." And it handles a lot of different things, from if you have kids, if you work a late shift, whatever. But the one of the simplest thing I talk about is the savers. Those 6 practices can be done in any duration. They can be done in any order, right? So you could do 5 minutes each. You could do 5 minutes of silence 5 minutes of affirmations, 5 minutes of visualization, 5 minutes of scribing, but then you could do 20 minutes of exercise and 20 minutes of reading, right? So it's completely customizable. And there's another chapter in the book called the 6 minute miracle morning, which is, and this is something where most people we have, I think we, at least I do, have an all or nothing mindset, which is like if you intended to go to the gym for an hour and you wake up late, now you only could go for 20 minutes, you just don't go at all. And I caught myself in this habit of, if I didn't wake up on time or if I had an early appointment or something, I would just skip the miracle morning altogether. And then one morning I only had like 15 minutes before I had to leave, but I was dressed, I had I was ready to go. And I go, I'm going to do a 6 minute miracle morning. I'm going to do 1 minute for each of the savers. And I'm going to see how that feels. And I did 1 minute of silence. And yeah, you can't go really deep in a minute of meditation, but you can absolutely say a quick prayer or do a little meditation, calm your nervous system, take some deep breaths, and you definitely feel calmer. And then I pulled out my affirmations, and in a minute I was able to read through them once, right? And I reminded myself of what I was committed to and who I needed to be, and I got excited and energized. Then I visualized my day. I looked at my schedule, and I visualized my day going through it in a perfect kind of mindset and attitude and energy. And anyway, and I did 60 seconds of jumping jacks, right? I was breathing heavy, got some oxygen to my brain. I pulled out a self-help book, I read a page, and I learned something new that was exciting, right? And then I pulled out my journal and I wrote down 3 things I was grateful for. And in 6 minutes I felt like I got 80% of the benefit of the miracle morning, and it was 1/10 of the time. And so yeah, so to answer your question, right, it's completely customizable. And I don't recommend that you do a 6 minute miracle morning every day, because you can't go very deep, right? I mean, it's not like reading a page a day, meditating for a minute. Like, is it valuable? Yes. Is it better than nothing? Yes. But as you do these practices, you start to realize a lot of people, myself included, after a week of doing the miracle morning for an hour and waking up at, what did I wake up at, 5 a.m. I decided I was getting so much value from the miracle morning that week two, I asked myself, how could I make this even better? I wish it were longer. And I go, what am I going to do? Wake up at 4 a.m.? And I went, yeah, I'm waking up at 4. And for, I think, 7 or 8 years, I woke up at 4 a.m. Until I got cancer, and then I decided to sleep a little bit longer. But yeah. So yeah. Anyway, there's a long answer to your question once again. But yeah, you can do the miracle morning in an abbreviated version. And a lot of people, I think we surveyed recently, and it was something like 80 some percent of miracle morning practitioners do 1 hour in the morning, and then the other 15 to 20% did 30 minutes. So those were the two most popular. It was either an hour or 30 minutes were the like 98% of people that did miracle morning.
Oh, awesome. And we will link to both of your books in the show notes because I highly recommend them. Everything you've shared is just so amazing. I've got a couple more questions for you. If you could put one book in the school curriculum of every high school around the world, besides your books, because they absolutely need to be in high schools everywhere. Imagine if I had have had this knowledge back then. Oh my gosh. What is one book that you would choose?
Oh, that's so hard to choose one. I'm going to choose a book that I've recently been uh, so high on, and that is Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is. Have you read that?
Yeah, it's so good. And I'll link to that one in the show notes as
Yeah,
well.
Loving What Is. I've never read a book that I was immediately using while, like, I was just, it changed my thinking just every day. And then I'm going to give one more. I'm going to cheat. Can I cheat?
Yeah, you can
Um,
cheat.
the Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, and those are two of my favorite books. The Untethered Soul just didn't feel as actionable, but it shifted my mindset, and I felt like those two married together were just like a really a beautiful thing. So yeah, but if I had to pick one, it'd be Loving What Is by Byron Katie.
I love Byron Katie, and I'll link to both of those in the in the show notes. Okay, I've got three rapid fire questions for you
All
now. Are
right,
you ready?
yeah.
Okay, what's one thing that we can do today for our health?
Uh, Drink more water.
Awesome. What's one thing that we can do for our wealth? So, more abundance in all areas of our life.
Get clear on how much money you want to earn, and then follow the 3-step affirmation formula that I gave you earlier. Commit to it, get clear on your why, and get clear on the actions you're going to take to do that. And if right now you don't know what those actions are, then the action is scheduling time to figure out what those things are.
Love it. And what's one thing that we can do today for more love in our life?
Just decide who you're going to be and how you're going to show up for the people in your life. And I'll tell you, the game changer in my marriage, after my wife and I were going through a really difficult time and she went camping without me, it was a tough time. And I decided, you know what? I'm playing what most of us do is we play this keeping score game where we reflect how people treat us. And if my wife's rude to me or she's in a bad mood, then I mirror that back to her. And I went, you know what? That's not who I want to be anymore. I'm going to love my wife unconditionally. And the only way to do that is to show up as a space and a projection of unconditional love. I'm going to commit every day to make her life amazing, to serve her selflessly, and no matter how she treats me. And then I actually went as far as I imagined, well, what if she's rude? How am I going to keep this space? I go, you know what? If she's in a bad mood and she projects that onto me, that for me means I need to love her even harder. I'm not going to mirror that. I'm going to be even kinder, even more compassionate, even more empathetic. Am I perfect at it? No, I'm human, but it's in my affirmations. And that to me is decide that you're going to be a space for love and belief in other people. And it's unconditional, not because of who they are and how they treat you, but because of who you are and how you're committed to treating them.
I love that. So beautiful, so inspiring. I'm going to do that with my husband as well, for
Awesome.
sure.
All right.
Is there anything else that you want to share? Is there any last parting words of wisdom or anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't get to ask you about?
No, I think we got everything accomplished. This is great. I would just say this. I'll leave you with this. Love the life you have while you create the life of your dreams, and don't think you have to wait for the latter to do the former. Right now, we're living in a pretty crazy world, and the one thing I remind myself every day is I can't control the outer world. A lot of it, at least, right? The only thing that I have control over is my inner world. And that my miracle morning for me is waking up every day, meditating, journaling, all these practices, doing my affirmations, and reminding myself that I am committed to be right at peace with all things I can't change. I'm committed to being grateful for everything in my life, from my adversity to the gifts that I have. I'm committed to projecting love. I'm committed to being a space for other people to be the best version of themselves, right? All these things that are my affirmations every day, it's taking ownership of my inner world. And so I encourage you to, no matter what's going on around you, decide that you are 100% responsible for what's going on inside of you, and then dedicate time each day, ideally in the morning, to nurture your inner world, to nurture your mind, body, and spirit so that you can be at peace, that you can be happy, that you can be optimistic, and that you can be proactive to take control of the things that you can control to improve your circumstances while you're loving the life you have, while you're creating the life of your dreams.
I love that. That's so beautiful. This has been so powerful, jam packed, so much information. I'm so inspired. Really, I truly am. And I want to thank you so much for sharing so openly and honestly and giving us all your tools and tips and tricks. And I want to encourage everyone to go to the show notes and grab your books. And I just wanted to ask you one final question. Everything that you do, all the work that you do, you're helping so many people. You are serving so many people all over the world, millions of people. How can we give back to you today?
Oh, that's a really sweet question. Honestly, it's to take on the miracle morning. Like I said, there's nothing that I've ever contributed to the world that has made such a profound impact. And again, not just profound in the width, reaching millions of people. It's really in the depth, And I've had from people, whether it's overcoming depression, like whatever it is in your life you're struggling with, yeah, just to implement what I talked about today. I mean, that really is, that would be the greatest gift to me, because that serves my mission of elevating the consciousness of humanity one person and one morning at a time. And today, I hope you are that person if you're listening.
Thank you so much, Hal. This has been awesome. I love your energy. You're so high vibe and energetic. It's beautiful to be around. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I am so grateful. So thank you so much.
Ditto, Melissa. Thank you.